All right, so tonight we're diving into a case that's both fascinating and incredibly sad. It's one of those mysteries that just grabs you and doesn't let go.
Yeah, it really does. And it's been almost 17 years now, and there's still so much we don't know.
Exactly. So imagine this. It's a chilly spring night in rural Minnesota, May 14th, 2008, just past midnight.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Those wide open spaces, kind of quiet, probably pretty dark.
Exactly. And this 19-year-old college freshman, Brandon Swanson, is driving home after celebrating the end of the school year with some friends.
Sounds pretty normal so far.
Right, totally normal. He's on these back roads, the kind that cut through farmland, not a lot of traffic, and his car gets stuck in a ditch.
Okay, so a little bit of a bump in the road, but nothing too serious, right?
You'd think so, right? I mean, it happens. He calls his parents, Annette and Brian Swanson, at 1:54 a.m. He's calm, maybe a little frustrated, but tells them he's near Lind, a town they know not too far from home in Marshall.
So they're thinking, we'll go get him, no problem.
Exactly. But here's where things start to get strange. As they're driving towards Lynn, they realize something's off. Brandon isn't where he says he is. He's actually about 25 miles away near a town called Porter.
Wow, so he's really disoriented.
Yeah, and that's going to become a huge factor in everything that follows. He calls them again at 2:23 a.m., and this call, it lasts for 47 minutes.
Huh.
He's trying to guide them to him using his flashing headlights, but he's still convinced he's near Lind. The directions he's giving, they just don't match up with where his parents are.
So they're driving around getting more and more worried, and he's miles away thinking they should be able to find him.
Exactly. And you can imagine the frustration and fear on both sides of that phone call. At some point, Brandon says he sees the lights of Lind in the distance. He decides to start walking towards them, leaving his car behind.
Oh no, he's walking in the dark in unfamiliar territory.
Right. And all the while, he's still on the phone with his mom, Annette. He's describing what he's seeing, walking along these gravel roads, through fields. He even mentions hearing dogs barking, and he thinks he might be near a river.
So he's giving them these clues, but they're still searching in the wrong place.
Sadly, yes. Annette's doing everything she can to keep him calm, urging him towards those lights he thinks he sees. And then at 3:10 a.m., it happens. Brandon suddenly says, "Oh, shit." And then nothing. The line goes dead.
Oh wow, that must have been terrifying for his parents.
Absolutely. They try calling back over and over, but there's no answer. They keep driving around, searching, calling out his name, but Brandon is gone.
It's just chilling to think that he was talking to his mom one minute and then just gone.
It's a mystery that has haunted people for almost 17 years now, and with the anniversary coming up in 2025, there's been a lot of renewed interest online and in the media.
It's a case that really gets under your skin. I mean, what happened to Brandon Swanson?
That's exactly what we're going to try to figure out today. We're going to dig into all the details, examine the theories, and see if we can make any sense of this baffling disappearance.
Yeah, let's try to piece together what we know.
Okay, so to understand this story, we need to understand Brandon. He was born on January 30th, 1989, in Marshall, Minnesota. It's a small town, very rural, surrounded by farmland and wind turbines. He was the younger of two kids, had an older sister named Jamin. His parents, Annette and Brian, they were loving and supportive. By all accounts, they were a close family.
It sounds like a pretty typical good upbringing.
Yeah, it really does. People who knew Brandon describe him as a good guy, smart, responsible, had a quiet sense of humor. He did well in school, graduated from Marshall High School in 2007, and then went on to study wind energy at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby.
Wind energy, huh? That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. It kind of shows he was forward thinking, right? This was back in 2007 when wind energy was really starting to take off. His parents were really proud of him. He wasn't a big partier. He liked hanging out with friends, playing video games, being with his family. He had a girlfriend he'd met at college, and he was close to his parents, would call them regularly just to check in.
So not the kind of kid who would just run off without a word.
Exactly, and that's why his disappearance is so baffling. So it's May 13th, 2008, the last day of his first year of college. He's excited about summer break, joined some friends for a casual get-together in Canby. He has a few drinks, but later estimates put his blood alcohol content around 0.05, well below the legal limit. So he wasn't really drunk.
Okay, good to know, because sometimes that can be a factor in these kinds of situations.
Right. Around midnight, he says goodbye to his friends, gets into his green Chevy Lumina, and starts driving back to Marshall. Now, here's a key detail. Instead of taking the main highway, U.S. Route 59, he decides to take back roads.
Any idea why he would do that?
We can only speculate. Maybe he was trying to avoid police patrols. It was the end of the school year. Or maybe he just preferred the quieter, more scenic route. We just don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's strange, though. It's like that decision to take the back roads set in motion this whole chain of events.
It's true. So there he is, driving alone on these dark rural roads, probably thinking about summer break. And he has no idea that this ordinary drive is about to become anything but ordinary.
It's like a story taking a dark turn. You know, it starts so normal, and then things just spiral.
Absolutely. So we're back to that night, May 13th, turning into May 14th. Brandon's had a few drinks, but as we said, he wasn't drunk. He's in his green Chevy Lumina, heading home on those back roads. And around 1:54 a.m., he gets stuck in a ditch.
Not a crash, though, right? You said the car wasn't damaged.
Right, it wasn't a crash. It seems like he just misjudged something in the dark and went off the road a bit. This is near Porter, remember, which is about 25 miles from where he thought he was.
Yeah. Okay, so he's still way off course.
And that's going to be a major problem. So he calls his parents, tells them he's stuck near Lind. They immediately get in their car and start driving towards Lind looking for him.
My husband's so worried.
Oh, absolutely. But they can't find him. They're searching all around Lind, but he's not there. Then he calls again at 2:23 a.m. This call, it's the crucial one, lasting for 47 minutes.
47 minutes. That's a long time to be on the phone with someone who's lost.
It is, and it must have been agonizing for everyone involved. He's trying to guide them using his flashing headlights, but he's giving them directions based on where he thinks he is, near Lind. His parents are driving around Lind looking for flashing lights, but it's just not working.
So much miscommunication and frustration.
Exactly. And all this time, it's getting later and later. At some point, Brandon says he can see the lights of Lind in the distance. He decides to leave his car and start walking towards them, hoping to get to safety.
It seems like a reasonable decision in that moment, even though it might not have been the best one.
I think so, too. It's dark, he's disoriented, and he's desperate to get home. He stays on the phone with his mom as he's walking. He describes walking on gravel roads, going through fields, hearing dogs barking. He even thinks he might hear or see a river nearby.
So he's giving them these clues, but they're still searching in the wrong place.
Sadly, yes. Annette's doing everything she can to keep him calm, urging him towards those lights he thinks he sees. And then at 3:10 a.m., it happens. Brandon suddenly says, "Oh, shit!" And then nothing. The line goes dead.
Oh, wow. That must have been terrifying for his parents.
Absolutely. They try calling back over and over, but there's no answer. They keep driving around, searching, calling out his name, but Brandon is gone?
It's just chilling. To think that he was talking to his mom one minute and then just gone.
That's the moment everything changes. They spend the rest of the night frantically searching, calling his phone, but there's just silence. It's every parent's worst nightmare.
It's unimaginable. And they must have felt so helpless.
By 6:30 a.m., they decide to call the Lyon County Sheriff's Office and report him missing. At first, the police, they don't seem too concerned. Brandon's 19, an adult. There are no signs of foul play. They figure he's probably just wandered off, maybe got a ride with someone, and he'll turn up.
But his parents knew him. They knew this wasn't like him at all.
Exactly. They kept telling the police that this was totally out of character for Brandon. He always kept in touch, and he was actively trying to get home during that last phone call. Later that morning, the police find his car, that green Chevy Lumina near Porter, right where he got stuck.
Okay, so they finally have a starting point for the search.
Right, but here's the thing. The car is undamaged, apart from being stuck. His keys, wallet, ID, everything's still inside. There's no sign of a struggle, no indication of what happened to him.
So even more questions than answers at this point.
Exactly. This is when the search really ramps up. You have the Lyon County Sheriff's Office, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, all involved. They bring in helicopters, search dogs, hundreds of volunteers.
A massive effort to try and find him.
Absolutely. They search over 120 square miles of really difficult terrain. We're talking about fields, ditches, rivers, farmland. It's tough. The search dogs, they pick up his scent near the car and follow it for about 3 miles along a gravel road. And then the trail leads straight to the Yellow Medicine River.
The Yellow Medicine River. That's a key detail.
It is, and this is where the scent trail just stops, right at the riverbank. They send divers into the river, they search the banks for miles, but they find nothing. No body, no clothing, not even a shoe.
So the river becomes a huge focus of the investigation.
It does, and it makes sense. It's right where the scent trail ends. But it's important to remember that it was a dark night, and Brandon had a slight limp from a childhood injury. He was also legally blind in his left eye.
Oh, wow. So navigating that terrain in the dark would have been incredibly difficult for him.
Exactly. And that adds another layer of complexity to this whole mystery. So, as the initial searches turn up nothing, the focus shifts to trying to understand what might have happened to Brandon. There are a few main theories, and they each have their own set of challenges.
Okay, let's break down these theories.
The first one, and probably the most obvious one, is the accident theory. The search dogs led right to the Yellow Medicine River, and it's not hard to imagine him accidentally falling in, especially in the dark. The river might be shallow in places, but it has a strong current. The banks are steep, often muddy and slippery.
And with his limited vision, it wouldn't have taken much for him to lose his footing.
Exactly. And the water temperature that night was estimated to be around 50 degrees. That's cold enough to cause hypothermia pretty quickly.
So even if he didn't drown, the cold could have been a factor.
Definitely. But here's the thing. They searched that river extensively. Divers, volunteers, they covered a lot of ground. They even searched downstream into South Dakota, where the river connects with the Minnesota River.
And they found absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Not a trace. And that's what makes this theory so difficult to fully accept. If he fell in, you'd think they would have found something eventually.
Yeah, it's strange. You'd think something would have turned up.
Right. And then there's the theory that Brandon got lost and succumbed to the elements. Remember, this is a very rural area. We're talking about huge open fields, deep ditches that are hard to see, abandoned farmsteads with potential hazards like old wells or sinkholes.
It's easy to get disoriented in a place like that, especially in the dark.
Absolutely. He could have wandered off, gotten lost, and just not been able to find his way back. The temperature that night was in the low 40s, so exposure could have been a factor too.
So he might have just kept walking, trying to find his way, and eventually.
It's possible. But again, there's a problem with this theory. Despite all the searching, they didn't find any footprints, any signs of him having been out in those fields or ditches.
No clothing, no personal belongings, nothing.
Nothing that could be definitively linked to Brandon. And that's what makes this theory, like the river theory, so difficult to fully accept.
So we have two plausible theories, but neither of them quite fits with all the evidence.
Exactly. And then we come to the theory that a lot of people find the most disturbing: foul play.
Okay, so what makes people think that foul play might have been involved?
It's mainly because of what Brandon said right before the phone went dead. Oh, shit. It suggests that something startled him, something that made him afraid.
Like he saw something or someone.
Exactly. It could have been a person, a car approaching, an animal. We just don't know. And the fact that the phone call ends abruptly right after that exclamation, it just adds to the suspicion.
It's like a sudden, unexplained interruption. It definitely makes you wonder.
And while the area where he disappeared wasn't known for a lot of violent crime, it wasn't immune to it either. There were rumors of a white pickup truck seen in the area around the time Brandon disappeared, but it was never identified, and there was never any direct link to Brandon. Still, it's something that people have focused on.
It's like a loose thread that people keep pulling on, hoping it will lead to something.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the theory that Brandon might have disappeared voluntarily. Maybe he was stressed about something. Maybe having a few drinks led to an impulsive decision. We just don't know. But there's really no evidence to support this idea.
Yeah, his family and friends said he was happy, had plans for the future, and there's no indication that he was planning to run away.
Right. And his bank accounts, his phone, his social security number, none of them have been used since that night. So it's the least likely scenario.
So we have these four main theories: accident, exposure, foul play, and voluntary disappearance. And none of them perfectly explains everything.
It's incredibly frustrating, and it's just so sad for his family and friends not knowing what happened.
It's the not knowing that must be the hardest part.
It really must be. But even though the initial searches didn't find Brandon, the investigation didn't stop. The Lyon County Sheriff's Office kept working on the case. They collaborated with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and even the FBI got involved.
So they brought in a lot of resources and expertise.
They did. They interviewed anyone who might have had contact with Brandon before he disappeared, his friends, his girlfriend, anyone who might have seen him that night. But everyone they talked to said he was in good spirits, happy, not acting strangely at all.
So nothing to suggest he was planning to disappear or that something was wrong.
Right. It all points back to that night, that drive home, and something happening that no one could have predicted. The police, they also looked into the possibility of foul play. They followed up on every lead, including that white pickup truck, but nothing panned out.
It's like they hit a wall.
They did. And at the same time, they had to consider the environment. It was a dark, rural area with lots of potential hazards. It's possible that something happened that had nothing to do with another person.
Yeah, like an accident or getting lost.
Exactly. But here's something positive that came out of this tragedy. Brandon's Law. This law, it was something that Brandon's parents fought hard for. It was enacted in 2009, and it requires police in Minnesota to immediately investigate any missing person report, regardless of age or circumstances.
That's a huge change. It means the police can't just dismiss a case because someone's an adult or because there's no obvious sign of foul play.
Exactly. And it's helped a lot of families in Minnesota since then. It's a lasting legacy for Brandon.
It's a powerful example of how something good can come out of something so terrible.
It really is. And the community in Marshall, they were amazing. They rallied around the Swansons, they held vigils, they organized searches, they did everything they could to help.
It sounds like a very close-knit community.
It is. Brandon's friends from school and college, they were all involved in the searches. Local farmers let people search their land. They even drained irrigation ditches hoping to find something.
It's incredible how everyone came together to try and find him.
It really is. And the case, it's been featured on TV shows, podcasts, blogs, all over the internet. It's kept Brandon's story in the public eye, and that's so important. In 2010, there was a moment of hope. A search dog named Echo, trained to detect human remains, alerted near Mud Creek.
Mud Creek, isn't that a tributary of the Yellow Medicine River?
It is, about 2 miles from where they found Brandon's car. So they searched that area really carefully, but again, they found nothing.
Oh, that's so disappointing. To have that hope and then have it dashed.
I know. It must have been devastating for his family. Over time, the organized searches became less frequent, the case went cold. But Brandon's parents, they never gave up hope. They kept searching. They kept believing that someone out there knew something.
It's a testament to their love for their son that they never stopped looking.
It really is. And they became advocates for missing persons. They organized annual searches on the anniversary of his disappearance. They held a memorial walk in 2015. They planted a tree in his honor.
Trying to keep his memory alive and hoping for answers.
Exactly. Sadly, Brian, Brandon's dad, passed away in 2020, never knowing what happened to his son. It's heartbreaking. But Annette, she's continued the fight with the support of her daughter and the community.
What a strong woman to keep going after all these years.
She is. And, the internet has played a huge role in keeping Brandon's story alive. There are these huge discussions on Reddit and subreddits dedicated to unsolved mysteries. People go over the details, share theories, look for clues. There was a post in June 2024 about that oh shit moment that got thousands of comments.
The internet can be a powerful tool for bringing attention to cases like this.
It can. There are also true crime blogs that have covered his case in detail, podcasts like The Vanished, and even people talking about using new technology like AI to analyze the audio from that last phone call, or drones to search the area again.
It's interesting how technology might be able to shed new light on old cases.
It is. But there's also a downside to all this online attention. You get rumors, speculation, sometimes even harmful conspiracy theories. There's been talk about Brandon being involved in drug deals or even that he faked his own death.
Well, that's awful. That must be so painful for his family.
It is. There's no evidence to support any of that, and it just adds to their pain. But Annette, she's continued to focus on finding Brandon despite all of this.
She's an incredible woman.
And now it's 2025. The 17th anniversary of Brandon's disappearance is approaching, and there's renewed interest in the case. Annette and the community in Marshall are planning a vigil on May 14th to honor Brandon and to make another plea for information.
Hopefully someone will come forward with something, anything that can help.
We can only hope. The Lyon County Sheriff's Office says they haven't closed the case. Sheriff Eric Wallen, he's been involved since the beginning. He said just last year that they're still looking for answers.
That's good to know. It means they haven't given up.
And people are still talking about using those new technologies like AI and ground-penetrating radar to search the area again. The Yellow Medicine River, that's still a big focus for a lot of people, including Annette. There's been a lot of rain in recent years, which could have shifted debris in the river, maybe uncovering something that was hidden before.
So it might be worth another look with new technology.
Annette believes that Brandon is in the river, and finding him would bring her some peace.
I can understand that, to finally have some closure after all these years.
But there are still people who think foul play might have been involved because of that, oh shit, before the phone went dead. It's hard to shake the feeling that something happened to him, something more than just an accident.
It's a detail that just sticks with you. It raises so many questions.
It does. This case, it shows just how difficult it is to solve missing persons cases, especially in rural areas. The terrain is vast, the searches are difficult, and it's hard to keep hope alive after so many years.
And for Brandon's family, the not knowing must be the hardest part.
It must be. He was just a young man with his whole life ahead of him. He had dreams, he had a loving family, and now he's just gone.
It's a tragedy, and it's a reminder that these kinds of things can happen to anyone, anywhere.
It's a sobering thought. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Brandon Swanson's disappearance. It's a case that stays with you, with so many unanswered questions. We hope that by talking about it, by keeping his story alive, we might, in some small way, contribute to finding those answers.
Hopefully someone out there knows something, and they'll finally come forward.
That's what we're hoping for. What do you think, listeners? Will we ever know what happened to Brandon Swanson? We encourage you to share your thoughts and theories in the comments, and if you have any information, no matter how small, please contact the authorities. Every little bit helps. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll be back with another deep dive into a fascinating and important topic soon.